The bank app does not need a long message. It only has to show $12 left. And suddenly, your whole day starts negotiating with itself. You may not be broke on paper yet, but one low balance alert can make you feel cornered. Not because of $12, because of what comes next. This is the bank alert trap. The alert arrives after the danger has already started. The bank warns you at its line, not yours. The small purchase is not always the villain. Sometimes lunch, gas, or medicine is just ordinary survival. The trap is having no room for ordinary survival. Your balance is not just money, it is runway. $12 for one day feels different than $12 for 9, and that difference is where the stress actually lives. The strange part is that nothing dramatic has happened yet. The lights are still on, the rent is not late, and the phone still works. But your brain already starts acting like an emergency meeting has been called. You replay the last few purchases like evidence. The coffee, the gas, the $8 lunch, the small charge you barely remember. Each one suddenly feels suspicious, even if none of them actually caused the problem. That is how the bank alert trap begins. It makes you investigate tiny choices after the big timing problem has already moved through your account. A normal errand becomes a math test. $10 of gas is not really $10 anymore. It becomes the difference between getting to work and triggering another warning before lunch. The stressful part is not the gasoline. It is that your balance is now too small to absorb ordinary movement. Any swipe feels larger because there is no cushion left to soften it. This is why $12 can feel bigger than $12. It is not only a number, it is the last thin wall between you and overdraft fees, embarrassment, or a declined card. The world loves to blame the small purchase because it is easy to point at. A coffee has a receipt. A lunch has a price tag. A small treat looks like proof that you made the mistake. But most low-balance stress is not created by one coffee. It is created when rent, insurance, phone, minimum payments, and subscriptions move first, leaving your flexible life to fight over what remains. So the coffee becomes the visible suspect, while the real pressure is hidden in timing. The fixed costs already took the big bites. The small purchase just happened to be standing near the crime scene. Imagine a paycheck landing on Friday. It feels like relief for a few minutes. Then rent moves. Then the car insurance hits. Then the phone bill clears. Then a minimum credit card payment posts overnight. By Monday, the paycheck has not disappeared randomly. It has been assigned. The money arrived, but much of it was already spoken for before you made a single personal choice. That is the part the bank app does not explain. It shows the ending balance, not the order of attack. It tells you what is left, but not why the runway got so short. This is why low-balance stress follows you into places that should feel normal. A vending machine, a lunch invite, a parking meter, a pharmacy counter. Suddenly, every tiny transaction becomes socially risky. You are not only asking, "Can I afford this?" You are asking, "Will this expose me?" That is a different kind of pressure. It turns private cash flow timing into public self-protection. And once money becomes socially dangerous, you start making choices to avoid being seen. You skip things, delay things, pretend things are fine, and hope the app stays quiet until the next deposit. The bank's alert line is usually too low to protect your nervous system. It warns you when the account is already close to the floor, when the next ordinary purchase can feel like a threat. Your real alert line may be much higher. Maybe it is one tank of gas, one grocery run, one copay, and one small surprise. Not because you are dramatic, but because life keeps moving. The first shift is realizing the alert is not the beginning of danger. It is often the receipt for danger that started days earlier, when fixed costs moved before you had time to breathe. Once the balance gets low enough, your brain stops treating money like a plan and starts treating it like weather. You check it the way you check the sky before leaving home, trying to guess what can hit you next. That checking can look responsible from the outside, but inside, it feels different. It is not calm awareness. It is scanning, refreshing, reopening the app because maybe the number changed, even though nothing has happened. The trap trains you to confuse monitoring with control. You keep looking at the balance because looking feels safer than not looking, even when the app cannot give the money more room. This is where smart people get pulled into shame. They see the low number and assume it means they failed at discipline. They forget that several decisions were made automatically before they were even awake. Autopay can be useful, but it also changes the emotional timing. The bill does not wait for you to feel ready. It moves when the calendar says move, and your nervous system has to catch up afterward. So the alert does not just say, your balance is low. It quietly says, "You should have seen this coming." That sentence is often what hurts more than the number itself. The bank app shows one gauge loudly and hides the others. It shows balance, but balance without time is incomplete. $12 today means one thing. $12 with 6 days until payday means something entirely different. That missing timepiece is why you can technically have money and still feel unsafe. Your account is not asking, "Do you have $12? Your life is asking, "How long must $12 last?" This is the runway problem. A plane does not only need fuel, it needs enough runway to take off safely. Your checking account works the same way when bills, food, transportation, and timing all collide. Two people can have the same $12 and live in completely different realities. One person gets paid tomorrow, has groceries at home, and only needs to make it through one quiet evening. Another person has 9 days left, a gas tank near empty, a prescription to pick up, and a bill that may clear before the deposit arrives. Same balance, different runway, different emotional weather. That is why judging the number alone can be cruel. The balance is only the visible part. The invisible part is time, obligations, and how many ordinary life events still need to pass through that tiny doorway. Low balance shame makes normal purchases feel morally loaded. A person buying eggs can feel like they are making a dangerous financial decision, even though the real problem started long before the checkout line. This is how the mind finds an easier target. It cannot negotiate rent at the register. It cannot move payday closer. It cannot undo the insurance withdrawal. So it blames the thing in your hand. The groceries become the argument. The lunch becomes the argument. The gas becomes the argument. But most of the time, the real fight is between fixed costs and a paycheck that has no breathing room left. The psychological pressure gets sharper when money choices touch identity. Saying no to lunch is not just saving money. It can feel like announcing that you are behind, even if nobody else is thinking that. So people often spend a little to avoid the social signal. $12 becomes the price of looking normal for another hour. Not because they are careless, but because dignity has a cost too. That is why the title feels uncomfortable. Some people do spend $12 to avoid a bank alert, but underneath that choice is usually a deeper stress, avoiding the feeling of being exposed. The trap becomes a loop. You check the app, feel bad, avoid the feeling, make one small decision to get through the day, then check again and feel worse. The app becomes both warning and punishment. But the loop weakens when you name the real pattern. This is not simply bad discipline. It is late information, thin cash flow runway, fixed costs moving first, and a warning line set for the bank's comfort. Once you see that, the question changes. It is no longer, "Why am I like this?" It becomes, "What number would warn me early enough to actually do something?" The mechanism behind the bank alert trap is simple. Your checking account is asked to do too many jobs at once. It must receive income, pay fixed bills, cover daily survival, absorb surprises, and protect your mood. When that one account gets too thin, every job starts competing with every other job. Groceries compete with gas. Gas competes with a phone bill. A prescription competes with a subscription you forgot was still active. The alert only appears at the end of that competition. It does not show the fight while it is happening. It waits until the account has already lost most of its room. Fixed costs are powerful because they move before your preferences. Rent does not ask whether you had a stressful week. Insurance does not care if groceries were higher. Minimum payments do not pause because your car needed gas. This is why the paycheck can feel smaller even when the paycheck number has not changed. The first dollars are already assigned to things that keep your life standing. Only the leftovers feel personal. And when the leftovers shrink, freedom shrinks with them. Not dramatic freedom, small freedom. The freedom to buy lunch without calculating. The freedom to accept plans. The freedom to make one mistake without the bank app punishing you. Autopay makes this more invisible. It is convenient, and sometimes it prevents late fees. But convenience can hide timing. A bill that clears at midnight may change your morning before you even touch your phone. That means the emotional order is backwards. First, the money leaves. Then, the alert comes. Then, you feel responsible for reacting late, even though the system gave you information after the move happened. This is not an argument against autopay. It is an argument for seeing autopay as a schedule, not a background feature. Anything automatic should still be visible before it becomes a surprise. Here is the quiet math. Imagine you get paid $1,600 on Friday. That number looks like relief. Then $950 goes to rent, $140 to car insurance, $85 to phone, and $120 to a credit card minimum. Before food, gas, laundry, medicine, or one social plan, the account is down to $305. That is not nothing. But if payday is 2 weeks away, $305 is not really a balance. It is a countdown. Now add one grocery run, one tank of gas, and one automatic subscription. Suddenly, the bank app acts shocked that you have $12 left. But the problem was built into the timeline days earlier. This is why the same income can produce different stress levels. Two people can both make decent money, both work hard, and both avoid obvious overspending, yet one feels stable while the other feels chased. The difference is often not character. It is timing, fixed costs, debt minimums, and how much runway sits between one obligation and the next. Stability is not only about what you earn, it is about when money leaves. A person with $400 and 2 bills pending may feel less safe than a person with $120 and no bills until payday. The bank app shows the larger number. Your nervous system reads the runway. The bank's low balance alert works like a storm warning that arrives when the rain is already inside your apartment. It tells you conditions are bad, but not early enough to move anything out of the way. A useful warning has to arrive while you still have options. Maybe you can delay a flexible purchase. Maybe you can move a bill date. Maybe you can skip a subscription before it renews. But an alert at $12 often gives you fear instead of choices. That is why your personal alert line has to sit above the bank's alert line, where action is still possible. One way to see the trap sooner is to stop thinking of checking as one pile. Mentally divide it into 3 lanes: fixed bills, flexible spending, and surprise costs. The balance only feels clear when those lanes are separate. Fixed bills are the money already promised. Flexible spending is the money you still choose. Surprise costs are the things life does without asking. Low balance panic happens when all 3 lanes collapse into one small number. That is when $12 becomes confusing. Is it gas money? Food money? Emergency money? Bill money? When one number has too many jobs, every decision feels like it might steal from another part of your life. The practical shift starts with a better warning line. Not a perfect budget. Not a guilt spreadsheet. Just a number that means, if my checking falls below this, I need to slow down before the bank starts yelling. For one person, that line might be one grocery run plus gas. For another, it might be the next bill plus 3 work lunches. The point is not the exact number. The point is warning yourself before exposure. That turns the alert from punishment into information. You are no longer waiting for the bank to tell you the floor is near. You are marking the edge earlier, while you still have room to step back. Now compare 2 people with the same paycheck. Same income, same city, same rent pressure, same rising grocery prices. The difference is not that one is magically disciplined and the other is careless. The difference is when they see the trap. One person waits until the bank alert arrives. The other treats payday like a traffic map and looks for what is about to move. That timing difference changes the whole month. Not because awareness creates money out of nowhere, but because seeing pressure earlier lets you protect the little choices that usually disappear first. The reactive path starts with relief. Payday lands, the balance looks normal again, and the nervous system finally relaxes. After days of checking the app, the higher number feels like permission to breathe. So the person catches up emotionally before they catch up financially. They buy the dinner they postponed. They replace the gas they stretched. They pay one thing that was making them anxious. None of this is reckless by itself. The problem is that payday relief can hide payday math. The account feels repaired before the month has actually been mapped. Then the automatic payments move. Maybe not all at once, but close enough to feel like a wave. Rent clears. A subscription renews. A credit card minimum posts. Insurance takes its scheduled bite. By the time the person checks again, the balance is smaller than their memory of payday. That gap between what they thought they had and what is actually available creates a second shock. This is where the trap feels personal. The person thinks, "How did I do this again?" But the real answer is often simpler. The account was never as available as it looked. The early awareness path does not look glamorous. It looks like pausing on payday and asking, what part of this money is already claimed before I start feeling better? That one question changes the order. Instead of treating the balance as available, the person subtracts the fixed moves first. Rent, insurance, phone, minimum payments, anything automatic, anything already promised. What remains may still be small. But now it is honest. A smaller honest number is less dangerous than a bigger number that quietly lies to your nervous system. The proactive person does not just ask, "What is my balance?" They ask, "What is my balance divided by time?" Because cash flow is not a photograph, it is a calendar. If $220 has to last 11 days, that is a different life than $220 for 3 days. The number did not change, but the pressure did. The runway changed. This is where dignity returns a little. You stop being surprised by the same low balance alert and start seeing the approach lights before the account gets close to the ground. This contrast also separates necessary costs from invisible costs. Gas to get to work is not the same as a forgotten app renewing in the background. Medicine is not the same as a subscription you no longer use. When everything hits one account, all spending can feel equally guilty. But it is not equally meaningful. Some purchases keep your life functioning. Some purchases simply escaped review. The goal is not to shame every dollar. The goal is to identify which dollars are survival, which are comfort, and which are just old decisions still charging rent inside your account. The late reacting person often spends to avoid the emotional sting of saying no. They are not buying the lunch only for food. They are buying a moment where nobody can tell they feel financially cornered. The early aware person may still say yes. But the choice feels different because it is not being made inside fog. They know whether the $12 is harmless, tight, or dangerous. That is the real power of a personal alert line. It does not make you rigid. It makes your yes clearer, your no less shameful, and your small choices less haunted. From the outside, these two paths can look almost identical. Both people work. Both pay bills. Both buy gas, groceries, and small things that help the week feel human. But internally, one person is always reacting after the alert, while the other is slowly building an earlier warning system. One lives at the bank's danger line. The other is trying to create their own. And that is the shift this trap wants to hide. The goal is not to never hit a low balance. The goal is to stop letting the first warning arrive when your options are already gone. The practical move is not to become perfect with money overnight. It is to move the warning earlier. The bank's low balance alert is usually designed to warn you when the account is already too close to danger. So start by choosing a personal alert line above the bank's line. Not a fantasy number. A real number that reflects your life. One grocery run, one tank of gas, and the next bill that could hit. That number becomes your first quiet boundary. It says, when checking drops below here, I do not panic. I pause, look at the calendar, and stop pretending the full balance is still available. Then make the runway visible. Look at the days between now and the next deposit. Mark what must clear before then. Rent, insurance, phone, minimum payments, anything automatic, anything that does not care how tired you are. This does not require a perfect budget. It requires a short runway check. Balance, days, bills before payday, and basic survival costs. Those 4 pieces explain more than the banking app usually shows. Once those pieces are visible, the number changes meaning. $200 stops looking like $200. It becomes $200 across 9 days, with gas, food, and one bill still ahead. The next step is separating the jobs your checking account has been forced to perform. Fixed money is already promised. Flexible money is still a choice. Surprise money is there because life rarely asks permission. Even if all the money stays in the same account, separating it mentally helps. It prevents one number from pretending to be everything. That one number is what creates the fog. When the lanes are separate, a small purchase becomes easier to judge. You can ask, is this coming from flexible money, or am I stealing from the next bill without realizing it? If one automatic payment keeps ambushing you, review the date. Some bills allow you to move the due date. Some subscriptions can be paused, cancelled, or moved away from the week where everything else hits. This is not about blaming autopay. Autopay can protect you from late fees. But automatic does not mean invisible. If a payment can move without you noticing, it deserves a place on the map. A bill that stays on autopay but becomes visible is already less dangerous. You do not need every payment to disappear. You need fewer payments surprising you after your choices have already been made. A simple formula can help. Your real alert line equals the next unavoidable bill, plus one basic grocery trip, plus transportation until the next paycheck. It is not financial advice. It is a way to see pressure earlier. For one person, that might be $80. For another, it might be $300. The point is not to copy someone else's number. The point is to stop using the bank's flaw as your warning system. Because the bank's floor protects the account from going negative. Your personal line protects your week from becoming mentally expensive before the money is actually gone. The first time you do this, it may not feel powerful. It may feel annoying, maybe even discouraging. Seeing the real runway can be uncomfortable when you have been surviving on hope and delayed notifications. But discomfort that arrives early is different from panic that arrives late. Early discomfort still gives you choices. Late panic only gives you explanations for why the card suddenly feels dangerous. That is the real practical move. Do not wait for the bank to tell you the edge is near. Mark your own edge earlier, while the month can still be handled instead of feared. Return to that first screen for a second. The $12 balance did not become harmless. It still matters. But now it is not a mysterious red number floating outside your control. Now you can read it differently. You can ask how many days are left, what bills are still coming, what money was already claimed, and whether the danger started before the alert appeared. That is the difference between panic and pattern recognition. Panic says, "I failed again." Pattern recognition says, "This warning came too late, and next time I need my own line earlier." Your checking account is not just a wallet, it is a runway. Money has to survive time, not just exist as a number. That is why the same balance can feel safe one week and dangerous the next. The bank app shows the fuel gauge. Your life needs the flight plan. Payday, rent, gas, food, medicine, automatic payments, and the small costs that keep you moving through ordinary days. Once you see the runway, you stop treating every small purchase like a character flaw. You start asking a better question. Does this decision fit the distance I still have to travel? This is why the $12 choice is not always about $12. Sometimes people spend to eat, to get home, to keep working, or to avoid one more public moment where money becomes visible. The goal is not to judge the purchase after the pressure has already arrived. The goal is to see the pressure before it corners you into choosing between dignity, survival, and another alert. A small purchase should not have the power to ruin your nervous system. If it does, the problem is not only the purchase. The problem is that your account has been operating without enough room. So keep the framework simple. Balance plus days plus bills before payday equals real runway. That one line tells you more about your life than the bank's default low balance warning ever will. Then set your personal alert line above the floor. Not because you are scared of numbers, but because you deserve information early enough to make choices without being cornered by them. This is not financial advice. It is a way to stop letting a bank notification define the moment your stress becomes real. Your stress was real earlier. Your warning should be earlier too. Maybe the next alert still comes. Maybe the account still gets tight. Understanding the trap does not magically make every bill smaller, and it does not turn a thin paycheck into a comfortable one. But it gives you a different place to stand. You are no longer waiting for the bank to announce danger at the bottom. You are learning to notice the slope before the fall. The calmest money skill is not pretending $12 is enough. It is seeing the runway early enough that $12 no longer has to carry the whole weight of your life.